Serious, casino dealers of Reddit, what's the most money you've seen someone lose, and how was the aftermath? Croupier here. Worked in a large casino not in America. We had a lot of Asian clientele in our VIP room. Once had a guy betting 600k per hand on baccarat. He ended up a few mother-in-law and was sharing it around the group of women escorts around him. Most I've seen lost his 10 mother-in-law in 3 weeks. He has the room booked for the month, so he made his bagman fly back to Thailand and get more money. Nothing was transferred. It was all cash. Finally, a question I can answer. I work in a well-known casino in Las Vegas. It happens multiple times per week that we get high rollers in who win or lose over $1 million. The most I ever saw a person lose was about $9 million in one night. But while that may seem like an obscene amount of money to you or I, that's what he budgeted himself to gamble that trip. He came knowing he may lose $9 million. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't happy. But he didn't lose his mind. Or freak out or anything like that. I'm on a 15k a year income and it absolutely blows my mind even trying to just imagine having that much money as disposable income. Dealer. Not in Vegas but still considered a large casino. The most heartbreaking losses always come from naive college kids or the regular single parents, but the largest loss I've ever seen was pretty entertaining. There's a regular at our casino that owns his own company but also used to scam other casinos by having an inside man at his bank confirm credit over the phone that the player did not have. He's since been busted for this and will definitely be sent to jail once the case is closed. He still has a ton of cash and plays at our casino, being the only one in the area that allows him inside. A few weeks after he was caught, he came to our casino with 4 briefcases of $250,000 each and said, "I'm not leaving until the sign outside says, insert player's name, casino." Super upbeat and happy guy. Really nice to the dealers, probably so he wouldn't get kicked out. After 5 hours, my shift was over and he was down $720,000. The smile on his face looked like he found the money in between his couch cushions. I'm going to hazard a guess that he knew he would lose everything once the fraud case went through. So he decided to at least have fun losing it. I manned the roulette wheel for about 6 months back in my college days. And the most amount of money I ever saw someone lose was $2,500. He put $100 on 22 different numbers. Red, even, and second half. I'll never forget his face with 0 showed up. The most amount of money I ever saw someone win was around $12,000 or so. Give or take. It was around Christmas time. And a group from a business Christmas party came in. The boss gave everyone $100 and she came over. Put $100 on 13. Just wanting to get rid of it and get home. 13. $3,500 instant win. She takes $3,400 back. And puts $100 on 25. 25. Another $3,400 net gain. I forget the third number. But she did it again. She then put $500 on one of the colors. Forget which. And about the same on the thirds. Forget which. She won the thirds. Lost the color. And walked had me call security over to escort her to cash in her sips. This took her no time. At all. She was very excited. Talking about how much this money would help her. This story actually made me happy. Time to gamble away my savings. 60k on blackjack. Guy didn't even blink. On to the next hand. If I bet more than $10 on blackjack, my heart starts racing. If I win that hand, the wife tells me it's time to cash out. Lol. Edit. Go figure. Biggest post ever is about blackjack. Jeez. My time to shine. Croupier here. Quit after this incident. I lost $3 mother-in-law in an hour. Won $5.20 mil back from the same client. All in the span of 6 hours. He hanged himself in the suite that night. Edit. House lost $3 million to the client in 1 hour. Should have walked when he could, but he played for the next 6 hours and slowly lost all his gains plus $2.20 mil to the casino. Word has it that he was on the verge of bankruptcy and this was his final resort. How hard is it to watch people gamble and lose sheetloads of money? I guess you either become numb or quit. Right? How long did it take for you to quit? Ex-croupier from Sydney. Dude turned over about 20 mil in 20 minutes. He was just there because it was uni enrollment time for his son. So decided to shout them a fun time in the inner sanctums. Another dude lost maybe 700k and didn't care. His bagman showed me photos of the private jet they travel in, which had a full-sized queen bed in it. Pretty awesome. Since I'm white, I didn't really get to deal much in the inners. But if the players lose, they just kick you out and ask for a luckier dealer. Usually an Asian female. What's up with Asian females? I dealt blackjack for a few months at an Iowa casino. A guy was staying at our hotel for a week on business and would play at my table at night because we had some good conversations and he had a few really good runs me. On his last hand one night he put down $500. Hit 2/8s against me showing a 6. He split them. On the first one he got a 3 and doubled down. Drew a 4 or 5. Second he got a 2 and doubled down on it as well and got another mediocre hand. I forgot what I had exactly, but I ended up drawing like 5 cards and not busting and taking $2,000 from him. He laughed and tipped me a couple of black chips, $200. I would have felt bad if I thought he couldn't afford it. We definitely had some people like that, but I got the impression he was doing just fine. If I recall, don't most casinos work on tip share? Like all your tips go into a pot and is split up? How good did you usually get tipped out? I always imagine it's pretty good with tips like that, but with the split does it bring it way down? Worked in the Grosvenor in Sunderland, England when I was 18. It was a tiny place, and a taxi driver would come in every night and put £200 on black 8 and laugh and leave after one spin, win or lose. He won twice the whole 6 months I worked there before being sacked. Edit. Apologies for the late edit. I got sacked for being a teenage douche-up. I was stood chewing the fat with a couple of the other lads and I was bragging to them about how I'd slept with the boss's daughters, not a threesome. Within a few weeks of each other, 2 years before I got this job, when the boss walks round the corner, he heard I got fired. Fair play. When I was a croupier I was dealing roulette. Guy was up around 20k. By the time I had finished with him he had lost that and spent another 5k. He wasn't very happy. I'm a dealer and I'll never forget my first night on roulette was the most I've ever paid out. I tap onto the game and I see a ducking stack of chips and 16. Boom. 16 off the rip for like 6 different people in total. One guy got it good for like 17k. Was an eventful first night on roulette. That game's fun to deal. Blackjack or baccarat? Awful. What do you mean by blackjack and baccarat being awful to deal? You mean it's not as entertaining or something? First off, a little background. Casinos in Asia are rumored to rent out tables, which means someone can pay the casino for the right to take a percentage of winnings from that table over a period of time. Basically it's money laundering. During my many trips to Macau and the Philippines I've watched people gamble away millions every hour over days, and the only reason I can attribute their behavior is to this type of money laundering. In the 2000s this was very common to see in Macau. Acrylic covered gold plaques worth Hong Kong dollars $100,000 thrown across the table like $2 chips over a game of baccarat many times over. The first time I saw it happen I counted the amount Re bought at $10 million. Which he lost in minutes right after he had just lost a stick in similar size. When I went back a few days later he was still there doing the exact same thing. The amount he lost laundered easily broke into hundreds of millions if not more. Currently a dealer at a large casino in the US. Not Vegas. I tap onto my blackjack game and this guy I'm dealing to tells me he is already down around 100k. He's a white guy. Mid-50s or so. Wearing a tacky plaid suit. He was betting 500-1k a hand. dropped her hands every time. Over about 4 hours the guy floats between my table and the one next to me, buying in 10k at a time. I gave him one good shoe the whole night, so I was busting his head essentially the whole time. A couple times it took longer for me to count his buy-in than for me to put it in my rack sheet. There were so many $100 bills in my money box it was getting tough to put the paddle in it. My floor tells me after he leaves that he lost 209k after it was all said and done. He treated it like how I would treat losing $1,000 maybe. He wasn't happy, but he seemed like he could shrug it off. My floor was like, yay, I could pay off my entire mortgage with what he just lost. I died a little inside that day, but it's not my money after all. I'm an analyst in a tribal owned casino in a not very wealthy area, so we don't see people losing in the millions. But we've got a few patrons that have lost hundreds of thousands of dollars to us over the years. Most of them are local business owners, or were owners that have now sold their company for big profits. So spending that much money here, and presumably the same or more at our local competitors, doesn't seem to be a problem. One of our biggest players for about a year was a little old lady whose husband died and she didn't have anything else to spend the life insurance on. So she put a few $100,000 into us over the year. Once she finished off that amount, she basically stopped playing altogether. She was just in it for the fun. She's spent enough though, and is a nice old lady. So most of the hosts comp her a free meal every once in a while, just to bring her in and check in on her. If she never spends another cent her, she's still one of our biggest players ever. Word of advice though, those folks you know who won a huge jackpot and have made so much money gambling and are big winners, well, there's a really good chance that they're net negative when it comes to their spending here. We've had folks win $100,000 jackpots and still be $150,000 in the hole. That's how this works. You might have some big wins on occasion, but every game is advantageous to the house. This was in a California card room, so you don't technically play against the house, so the house doesn't technically care who wins or loses as long as they get their collection. Basically a per hand fee to play. I was a third party banker, meaning we put up the money against whoever wanted to bet. We were licensed and everything, but didn't work directly for the casino. This one guy brought a lot of action, so the casino basically let him run his own games. He was mostly beating us regularly for several weeks at least. 250k there, 500k there. Not sure as he ever got over $1 million in a single game, but it was close. I beat him for 750k once. But at that point it didn't matter to him much, he was up so much. Couple weeks later, FBI came in and pulled him off mid-game. Turns out he was running some charity scam. Edit, story. Scam, Wikipedia.org. I can't recall how much is the most I've seen someone lose. You stop seeing it as money after so long, but I'll never forget dealing to this one lady. She wasn't a high roller, just an average Joe. She was playing blackjack and we opened her a private table because she requested it. We were quiet, early evening midweek. I dealt to her for probably about 45 minutes and watched her lose £14,000. She was in floods of tears asking me how I can do this to her, but I had no control over the game. It was all on her. I couldn't tell her to stop because that's me trying to stop her winning it back. I couldn't encourage her to keep on because that's me making her lose more. In big casinos people will drop more than that in one hand. But in a regular, everyday casino in the north of England, I just watched her lose what is just above the minimum annual salary in what could have been a lunch hour. My girlfriend was earning in the region of this much at that time. I got the usual abuse from her. I'm evil. I'm mugging an older woman. How do I sleep at night? We tried talking to her about problem gambling and where she can get help, but she wasn't interested. She didn't have a problem. She was just unfortunate that she got the devil incarnate as her blackjack dealer. But on the flip side of things, a few years later I was working as the pit boss and I'd called last 3 spins on the roulette. The takings were doing well. We were about £10,000 up on the night. Against small casino in a small town in the north of England, and the only guy playing was a young lad. A student who'd been out drinking and was clearly drunk. Still in control of his functions, so not a problem at all. He was a few £100 up. Can't remember now how much, but we tracked him for £100 and he had stacks of ponies in front of him, £25 chips. On the last spin I heard him shout to his mate, "I'm putting it all on 20. And that's what he did. His entire winnings went on to 20 in a combination of straight up, splits, corners, streets and 6-line. Boom ball drops. Dealer shouts, 20. Black even. My stomach fell out of my ass. I sent 2 inspectors to go check the payout because I didn't even want to look at the table. I knew we didn't have enough cash in the safe to pay it out, so I'd have to do an interim table box count to pay him out. The payout was around £24,000 that I had to send a shift report to upper management showing how we went from 10 up to 14 away from one spin. Obviously that's not the pit boss fault. But you never want to be the one delivering bad news when you were in charge. After we paid him out, we ordered him a taxi and he self-excluded himself so he wouldn't come back and lose it all. Fair play to the lad. Hey, I finally get a question that's directly relevant to me. And all the other answers are of way more money than I handled, since the casino I worked at wasn't a large tribal one. Nor was it even standard size. Really, it was a half casino half bowling alley. Anyway, I've dealt all the table games there plus poker over the years. Generally, people who bet big and lose win big are actually the calmer ones. They are very aware of the amounts they are betting and they are probably with enough income, trust, money, wealth that it doesn't matter. The really big reactions come from those who are broke and who are betting anyway, digging deep into debt with credit cards or borrowed cash, etc. etc. And it really doesn't happen all at once. Those people are the ones who bet $10 here, $5 here, $3 there, etc. etc. Doesn't sound like much, but an hour later they pull out another $200. And another. And then by the time 4 AM in the morning rolls around, they've put enough $3 bets down to lose their house. The biggest reaction I ever saw was this exact scenario. A guy was betting small all night, and I mean from around 5:30 PM to 4 AM. He was straight through the whole evening, midnight, and early morning with small bets. But those small bets ended up being way over $10,000 that he could not afford to lose. When the pit boss made the announcement at 4 o'clock that we were about to close in an hour, the player goes for like 5 more hands. And then as soon as the dealer scoops up the $3 bet, the guy screams, flips the table backward into the dealer, and begins chucking stills everywhere. It didn't last long. Our security guard was a 400-pound Samoan with a short fuse. When you watch the security footage, it's the funniest thing you ever saw. You see this guy flailing around, chucking stills and chips everywhere. Then suddenly appears a large black monster-y figure, who just appears to absorb the smaller man and continues right on moving off screen. And suddenly all is calm. Funny video, but not a funny situation in general. Gambling is a very bad addiction if you can't control it. Ex-croupier here. Probably a bit late to the party. I used to deal almost exclusively in VIP areas and private gaming rooms to international high rollers or top tier level locals. The regulars that come at least every week don't tend to play that big. Between $300 minus $10,000 per hand, and there's a lot of spectating and walking around and socializing. However, it's a different story with the internationals. The casino allows them to have much higher maximum bet, up to $600,000, and they get given their own private gaming room with only 1 or 2 tables that only they have access to. Most of the private rooms only contain baccarat tables, as that is what most of the high rollers prefer to play. The most I have ever seen anyone lose was this Malaysian guy I was dealing to in one of our private rooms that was actually connected to his penthouse suite in our 5-star hotel. He came to the table straight out of bed, still in his pyjamas. He gulps down a cup of ginseng tea and slams $500,000 on the table. Loses. Another bet. This time $600,000. Loses again. 3 more hands continued the same way until he reduced his bet to $300,000 and he finally wins 1 hand. He is furious that he lost all his big bets and his only win was his small bet. Because of this, I got kicked out from the room, and another dealer waiting outside for this exact reason comes to the table and replaces me. The player ended that day with a total loss of $9 million. He was staying at our casino for 1 week, and the next day I heard he lost another $10 million. The next few days he was up and down, but he did not come anywhere close to chasing back his losses. Since that trip, from what I have heard, he hasn't been back to our casino. Ex-dealer. I had a very friendly, happy-go-lucky type of customer lose, approx. £900, not £56,000 as he states in the local paper, to me during a day shift in the casino I used to work at. He seemed quieter than usual after this. I went home at 9 PM. During the night shift he cut his wrists in the toilet and had to be stretchered out of the place. The amounts he mentions in this news article are nonsense. I'm sure he did lose a sum of money over a period of time, but nowhere near £200,000. Initially I felt really sorry for him. Then he sold his story to local media and bulleted them to the maximum. I saw someone that I knew. An older gentleman. In his 50s. White guy. Not rich either, but he loved to gamble on the horse races. He was pretty good at it too. He a couple of times won big. Along the lines of 19k one time. But sadly one day I saw him lose a few races, get upset, and he put down 11k on a sure bet. Yeah, well, he lost that 11k again. Not a rich man. That was probably almost everything. I was a table games dealer for a while, and honestly, the people who lose it loads of money didn't really care. It was the regular Joes who would lose $300 in a night that would lose their sheet. Their body language would change, and I could tell they were there to make money and ended up losing the money they needed to pay bills. These were the hardest. On the flip side, we would have a guy come in with bankrolls of hundreds and play for 3 hours, win or lose. Biggest tip that guy ever gave was $30.